Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the March 8th, 2021 Berkeley Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. I'm Paul Evans, the chair. I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight. At this time, I'll ask everybody to stand and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next item on our agenda is roll call. Ms. Schluto.
Board Member Allen,
Here,
Board Member Gesund,
here in
Board
Berkeley, Michigan. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
yes. Board Member Gesund,
Here,
where are you broadcasting from, sir?
Berkeley.
Board Member Krug,
Here, Berkeley.
Board Member McAlpine,
Here from Berkeley, Michigan.
Board Member Euler,
Here, Berkeley.
Board Member Ward,
Here, Berkeley, Michigan.
Board Member Evans.
Here from Berkeley, Michigan. Okay, it looks like we do have a quorum. This board consists of 7 members and we do have a full board tonight. Next item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. We have a presented agenda here. Do any members of the board have any suggestions on any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Ward.
I would like to move old business to after new business, if we can do that.
Okay,
That would be
Sounds-
my motion.
sounds reasonable. Do we have a second?
Support.
Support by Ms. McAlpine. Any discussion? We'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Schluto.
Gesund,
Yes.
Krug,
Yes.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes. Okay, we have an approved agenda. The next item of business is approval of the minutes from our meeting of February 8th, 2021. Do any members of the board have any suggested changes or corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve those as submitted.
Move to approve the minutes from the February meeting as inserted.
Okay, motion by Mr. Allen. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Member Krug. Any discussion? Ms. Schluto, can we have a roll call vote?
Krug,
Yes.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Gesund,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes. Okay,
Mhm.
next item on our agenda is new business. And this is a zoning variance application for property on Elwood. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Okay, and very good. And is the owner of the property here as well? Anyone else?
The owner is here, yes.
Thank you. Okay. So before I turn it over to staff, I just want to explain to everybody here tonight the order of business and how we do this. So how it'll work is Ms. Schluto will present a brief presentation summarizing the requests and the particulars. At that point, if any member of the board has any questions for staff, they may ask them. Once we get past that, I'll ask the applicant to come up and make their presentation. And if any member of the board has any questions for the applicant, that would be the appropriate time. After that, we'll close that part of the meeting. I'll open it up to public hearing. And that's where any member of the public can comment on the application. And that would include anything we've received in email, any phone messages, or perhaps anyone who calls in at the meeting tonight. After public hearing is closed, I'll bring it back to the board for discussion. Once I close public hearing, unless requested by a member of the board, no one else is able to speak. That closes it all. And at that point, the board will be asked to deliberate and render a determination. So with that, Ms. Schluto, I'll turn it over to you for a summary.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. This request is for a variance to install a generator in the side yard of a residential dwelling. The location is 2650 Elwood Avenue. The owners of the property are John and Sarah Gianmarco. I have been in discussion with Ms. Gianmarco regarding her application. So per our ordinance that has been recently adopted, section 138-73, power generators and other exterior appliances shall be located in the rear yard at least 6 feet from the side property line. The applicant is requesting to install the generator in the side property line closer than 6 feet to the side property line. I have included some background on generators. As you know, the Zoning Board of Appeals has given interpretations regarding accessory structures, etc. This needed clarification and codification in our ordinance and has gone through the appropriate procedures for that ordinance amendment. The Planning Commission has spent several months discussing how the generators should be regulated, taking into account the determination and the interpretation by the Zoning Board of Appeals at various meetings, and determined that generators should be regulated to the rear yard. They held their required public hearing, and the City Council adopted the ordinance at the March 1st meeting. I have included the newly adopted ordinance in your packet for your reference. As you know, there are standards of review for granting a variance, and I'll just go through those quickly. Number one, the need for the variance is due to unique circumstances or physical conditions of the property. Number two, the need for the variance is not the result of actions of the property owner or previous property owners. Number three, strict compliance with the ordinance will unreasonably prevent the property owner from using the property for permitted use or will render conformity with those regulations unnecessarily burdensome. Number four, the requested variance is the minimum variance necessary to do substantial justice to the applicant as well as other property owners. And number five, the requested variance will not adversely impact the surrounding properties. I have provided some details and some points for the board to discuss in my review letter that was dated February 28th. This was also provided to the applicant at the same time that it was given to you. If the board determines to grant said variance to the property owner at 2650, there are two conditions that I would recommend attaching to that approval regarding the routine testing for the generator and limiting the hours that test may take, and that the generator should be screened from view on at least 3 sides. As I mentioned, the applicant is here this evening, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Schluto. Do any members of the board have any questions for staff? Okay, I don't see any. So at this point, Mr. McLaughlin, this is your turn to explain to the board about your
Yes.
request. Thank you.
Yeah, so I represent Flame Furnace Company, the company that the DeMarcos would like to have the generator installed by. And the request at this point is just due to the narrowness of the property, due to existing patios, decks, and things that are already placed in the rear, as well as the existing air conditioner is on the side yard in the same location that we are looking at for the generator placement. The generator would not be viewable from the street or the neighbors due to a 6-foot-high privacy fence, and would meet all manufacturer codes and recommendations from Windows, noise level as far as decibels. And the unit can also be set up to pick and choose the days and or hours that the exercise would run, which is a once-a-week exercise, and is as much the footprint also is much smaller than a typical generator, which is 2 foot by 4 foot. This unit is about 30 inches by 30 inches. So it is about the same volume as an air conditioner when it runs, about the same size, and would not be visible from the street or the neighbor who we've also talked to, who was also willing to approve the location if you guys approve the variance for us.
Okay, Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Any questions from the board? Ms. Ward?
You're on mute, Ms. Ward.
Mr. Chairman, from the materials that were provided, it shows that the generator testing would take place between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. I would like to ask Mr. McLaughlin, through you, is that the time frame?
So we can actually select what time and day we would like it. So we can pick a day, we could pick a time. If we said it had to be done at noon on a Wednesday, we can actually set that up in the generator settings so that that is the only time that it does it. And typically, yes, we do only do it during, you know, that 9 to 6 time frame, but we can actually specifically pick the exact times if that was specified for us.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Shudo alluded to the fact that if this is approved, that she would like a condition added, which would require a certain time or a certain date. And if I could ask for an explanation of that, I would appreciate it.
Yes, Ms. Schluto?
Yes, so that condition would just be to ensure that the testing was regulated to during the day and would be minimally invasive to any neighbors. So it wouldn't be done at Saturday at 8 o'clock when children are going to bed, or they're having neighbors are having get-togethers or things of that nature. So trying to regulate it to times where typically people are not in the home. Maybe they're at work.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Allen?
Yes, one of the things that I noticed as I was going through these plans, and I have to be honest, a very good friend of mine used to have the property right next door, so I'd seen it before. But between the two property lines, there is a 20-foot alley easement. It says it's abandoned. If it's abandoned, why does it show up on the survey? And who abandoned it?
Gotcha. That, Mr. Applicant, do you have an answer for that?
That's something I was not aware of on the plans that were provided to me by the owners. But I do know that there is, if you do look at the section that was provided of the lot, it does look like there is a section there that allows us to be, even though we're at what's considered the property line, we're still quite a distance away from the neighbor's property line, as well as I believe that's on their garage side of their home. So it is almost acts as a 8 to 10 foot buffer from where the fence line ends and the neighbor's property began, about 15 feet, excuse me, between where the 6 foot fence ends and the neighbor's property begins.
Okay, it's called out as a 20-foot easement, and it's an abandoned alleyway. Perhaps Ms. Schluto can answer the question. Do you have a history on that?
It's not an abandoned, it's a vacated alley.
Vacated, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's vacated. So that would have been done by city council previously. I don't have the history of that vacated alley, but that is fairly common with a lot of properties here in the city, where the property to the south, immediately to the south, faces Catalpa. So it's actually the rear yard facing a side yard situation. So there would have been an alleyway that had run behind the Catalpa properties at one point. I don't have the history on when that was vacated. If that'd be something that you'd be interested in, I can get that for you. But it is very common to see these vacated alleys between properties.
Okay. The reason that I'm asking is if you have a vacated easement or an easement and it's not actually been vacated, it's been said to be vacated, that if any work has to be done within that easement area, that absolves the people doing the work of any potential damage because something has encroached in the easement. I want to make sure we're not walking into that situation.
Right. No.
And if I may, it does show on page 36 that, yeah, That it's just the public alley, but it doesn't say that it's been vacated, correct? All right, all set, Mr. Allen?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Mr. Crew, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I had one question on here, and that's the fact that in this particular situation, we have a side yard abutting a rear yard. And it's almost to me that there shouldn't be an issue here for the fact that it's abutting a rear yard.
Did you have a question for the applicant or just that was your comment?
That was my comment. I'm sorry.
Okay, not a problem. Do any other members of the board have any questions? Ms. McAlpine?
Yes, I just wanted to confirm that if this was approved, that the petitioner is committing to screening the generator on 3 sides as one of the conditions for the approval.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the yard itself currently has a fence surrounding it, so it would be screened already by 3 sides.
Okay.
The condition was just that if there was ever a chance where the fence was dilapidated and they decided they didn't want to do it anymore, that they would continue to maintain that fencing or that screening along there. They don't have to do anything additional at this time. They've already fulfilled that requirement as is. I just wanted to make sure that that was clearly stated.
So at least they understand that they can't take down the fence and expose the generator.
Yeah, it's a fairly new fence, so I wouldn't expect that would be something that they would do. And Ms. Gianmarco looks like she's shaking her head no, that's not part of their plan.
Perfect, thank you.
Great. Any other members of the board? Mr. McLaughlin, I do have a question now. What would preclude putting the generator directly behind the deck? And I was there today to take a look, directly behind and adjacent to the deck, and perhaps a pedestal. Can you talk about that option and why that might or might not work?
So I'm not sure exactly as far as a pedestal, what you're referring to, because most of the time with the way the generators, they do need to be, set on level ground. Essentially, it has to do with positions of windows and exhaust. That house, because it's a narrow house and a long rear, it does have patio doors and windows. We just weren't able to figure out a way to vent that generator without having problems with the manufacturer of the 5-foot minimum clearance of any operating window or door wall. So it was a much safer location for the side yard next to where the air conditioner was, where we had one window to contend with, but the generator can be placed so that we've got that 5-foot clearance for exhaust, both intake and exhaust, which is part of the safety protocol.
So what I hear you saying,
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think somebody's got a mute. What I hear you saying is that if it was placed adjacent to, and let's see, that would be east of the deck,
Mhm.
that with the venting and exhaust, that's problematic. And as well as, and when I was referring to pedestal, I know they have to be on level ground and you want them that way, otherwise they won't run right. Because it's wet back there, could it be, instead of a typical pedestal size, could it be, I don't know, a foot? You're muted, sir. Mr. McLaughlin, you're muted.
No, we still can't hear you, Mr. McLaughlin.
Is that better? There we go. So there is a possibility to put a deeper pedestal there, where it could be made maybe out of 6x6s or something to raise it off the ground slightly more to keep it out of a low-lying area. I would definitely have to look back at my notes to see if we could, once it's raised, the problem is it does bring it closer to those windows that are back there. And again, we have to have, from any operating structure, we have to have that 5-foot clearance, whether it's on a diagonal or away from the house. And what we didn't want to do is end up putting the generator right smack in the middle of the yard. So trying to keep everything tucked up to the house within about 24 inches versus having it be out kind of in the middle. The other thing is, on that side of things, if I remember, that's the driveway side. And there are some specifications about location of a vehicle or something being able to slide into the unit if it's icy. So that was again the recommendation for the side yard.
Very good, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions from members of the board? Great, okay, at this point, I'll open up the public hearing. To speak during the public hearing, participants in the webcast can utilize the raise hand function by selecting Manage Participants on the bottom of your dashboard, and then select the More button in the bottom right-hand corner. Our moderator will call your name aloud and unmute you so that you can speak. For those that have called in, you can be placed in the queue for public comment by selecting *9. Our moderator will announce the last 4 digits of your phone number for recognition and unmute you so that you can speak. Participants will have 3 minutes to speak as they would if we were meeting in person. Once your 3 minutes are up, you'll be muted by our moderators. Additionally, comments can be submitted prior to or at this time to zoning@berkeleymish.net, where residents and community members can submit public comments as well. Your email must be able to be read in less than 3 minutes. Given the circumstances with the virtual space, we may not be able to read through all the email comments, but know that we will have them stored and acknowledged on the public record. To participate in the public comment, you can dial by phone at 1-312-626-6799 and enter meeting code 997-0652-8278. At this time, we'll review public comments. Darren, I'll begin with you for any emails we received prior to the meeting.
I have not received any emails or any phone calls or any correspondence.
Thank you. And do we have any members of the public who would like to speak? Anyone waiting in the waiting room here?
The owners.
Can the owner speak?
Yes. If just for the record, you want to mention your name and address.
Oh, sure. Sarah Jamarco, my husband John, he's just out of view, but we're at 2650 Elwood in Berkeley.
Ms. Gianmarco, if you could be a little bit closer, I'm having a hard time hearing. I don't know if that's
I
just.
can speak up. Maybe I'm just not being loud enough.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. 2 things I wanted to point out that I believe is included in your packet is the written permission from the neighbor located on Catalpa that their garage is where, located next to our side yard. So they're the neighbors that would be impacted. Nate and Erica did give us their permission. They, like they've said, there's a privacy fence. It's at the rear of their garage. And so I just wanted to point out that we did have that included. And then one reason for not placing it at the back of the deck, where our deck is located, we do plan to, we purchased the house about 1.5 years ago, and we plan to remove that deck and end up putting something possibly with concrete. We haven't explored all those options, but didn't want to be limited by placing the generator basically in the middle of the yard when the existing deck won't be there, much longer than, maybe this spring. So we do have a wet backyard. We're a newer construction house. We weren't the ones that built it, we're the second owners. And it is a little more flat where our air conditioner is located and where we're proposing to put the generator, dryer. The rear corner of our yard it's kind of sloped downward, so there's some pockets that are quite wet. That would be what we wanted to add.
Okay, you're all set then? Thank you. And do we have anyone else in the waiting room?
Mr. Chair, I see no other individuals waiting to speak.
Thank you. Well, at this point, I'll close the public hearing and I'll bring it back to the board for any questions, discussion, deliberation, and potential motion.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Allen.
Yes. We go through the list of conditions, And the one that I'm hung up on, because of the fact that there's a desire to build a deck and or patio off of there, it's starting, it seems to me to be self-created. I know the yard. I've seen it myself. I've looked at it. In my opinion, there are other places in the rear part of the yard that you could put that. We've been pretty firm on location of generators in the side yard. As a matter of fact, at our last meeting, we denied one. And we've been pretty clear about how we feel about putting them in the side yard.
Thank you. Do any other board members have any comments? Ms. Ward?
Okay, no, I'm not muted. My concern is that, yes, the backyard where the deck is, and like you, Mr. Chair, I did visit the property today, and this is a huge home on a small piece of property. I like to call it postage stamp size property. And although the property owners didn't build the house, the previous property owners did build the house and really created the problem with the very tiny backyard area. So siding with Mr. Allen, I just have some reservations. We denied this same request last month, and we have this before us again this month, different property, and there are some extenuating circumstances. But I really believe that part of the problem is that the house is so big and takes up so much of the backyard that there isn't really room to put a generator because the house is overbuilt on a small piece of property.
Thank you. Mr. Krug?
Yeah, I still have a really hard time on why this is in front of us, for the fact that we've got a side yard abutting a rear yard. And you've got a garage there. I mean, the generator is going to be spaced way far away from the house that's on Catalpa, as far as if we're worried about noise or anything like that. It really couldn't be a better setup than what's there.
Thank you. Any other members of the board?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Desund?
I'm a little concerned that your suggestion as far as putting the generator on a pedestal seems like that would be the minimum required to satisfy the ordinance, that especially since there are plans to demolish the deck and build maybe a concrete patio. It seems like that those plans could encompass a pedestal arrangement to put the generator there.
Thank you. Any other members of the board? I'm seeing somewhat of a practical difficulty with the configuration of the property to the Catalpa one. However, I'm just not convinced that that's unique. I think we've got a lot of situations in Berkeley where we do have a side to rear. I do understand that setting our standards aside, I mean, it's a good spot in the side. The neighbors consented. There's a lot of room between the generator and the house. However, I'm having challenges overcoming the fact that, I mean, this isn't the first time this board has heard it, that people want to maximize their space. And sometimes people have to decide, it's not necessarily this applicant, but it could be a builder. Do we want, do we want to maximize the footprint of our house? We want driveway space. We want a size garage. And it gets to a point where, could it be considered self-created? And I'm having difficulty overcoming the fact that that one standard. I'm convinced that it probably could be put in a different location, but we've got our standards. And while I like the location next to the house better, I'm just not convinced I don't have a comfort level in approving it because I don't think it meets the standard for self-created. So those are my thoughts.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I also have a concern given the fact that what we have been presented with, the layout of the deck, the layout of the yard, we could be approving something that in reality, 6 months from now is not how that backyard looks. So I don't know if we are better to, because we are having difficulty ensuring that they do meet the 5 standards that we have, that they have been met. Maybe this is something that the petitioner could consider tabling until they decide what their deck is going to look like. And I don't know if that would quite honestly make a difference, but I'm not sure what I'm approving now, given the fact that the yard, the dynamics of the yard and the deck would change or are planning to change.
Well, and I'm certainly if things were going to change, say this board didn't agree with granting a variance now, if there are significantly different factors, maybe Ms. Schluto, you could opine on this. If there are significantly different factors after modification of the yard, maybe it could be possible that they could apply, and then that we would have a more, the concrete set of property layout, based on what you're saying, once things are in place. Ms. Schluto, do you have any thoughts on that?
Their request would have to be significantly different than what they've presented, or they cannot apply within, it has to be at least 1 year between applications if it's going to be the same request.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Okay. Ms. McAlpine, are you all?
Yes.
Anything else? Okay, great. I do see that the applicant's hand is up, Mr. McLaughlin. However, typically, you've had your opportunity to speak, and normally, this is the time where the board deliberates based on all the information and the public comment that we've received. So I just want to say I recognize you. But of course, if another member of the board would like to hear what you have to say, I'm open to that. That's fine. Ms. McAlpine.
I'm open to hearing what he has to say.
Great. Okay. Well, Mr. McLaughlin, the board would like to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, my only question was, and I'm not 100% sure on this, I generally check with the city before doing anything, but what is the typical location allowances for an air conditioning unit in Berkeley? Is it typically behind the house, or is it allowed on the side of the house going through a variance as well? I just wanted to, because the air conditioner already is on the side of the house based on the fact that was the best location when the house was built as well. So I was just trying to get some clarification for my knowledge. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Schluto.
The ordinance, past practice, and then the ordinance has codified it, that air conditioning units can be placed in the side yard, provided they are screened on at least 3 sides. And this is for residential, of course. Commercial is completely separate. But generators themselves are regulated to the rear yard with the 6 feet from the property line. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this is something the Planning Commission has discussed for several months. The newly adopted ordinance was included in the packet, and I can send that to you this evening for your reference for the future.
Thank
but it
you.
is something that they discussed at length. Yes.
Thanks, Ms. Schluto. Okay, do any members of the board have any further questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Or perhaps more discussion if that's what direction the board wants to go in.
I'll make a motion to deny the application, and based upon it being a self-created need. The 5 standards have not been met. 4 of the 5 arguably have. The first one, the self-created problem, is not met.
Okay, we have a motion to deny and support by Member Ward. Are there any further discussions or comments? Hearing none, Ms. Schluto will take a roll call vote, please.
Mike Alpine,
You're muted, Sue.
Yes to deny.
Euler,
yes,
Ward,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes?
Gesund,
yes,
Krug,
No.
Evans. Yes. Sir, I'm sorry, your variance request has been denied. I want to thank you for your time and also for the homeowner for taking the time to be with us tonight. Okay, our next item of business is a variance request for property at 1919 Robina. And I do see that the applicant, Mr. Fake, you're here. Is it Fake?
It's Fayek.
Fayek, thank you very
Yes.
much.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, okay. And as I said before, the order that we'll go with for the request, these new business is that staff will summarize the request, take any questions from any members of the board. At that point, Mr. Fayek, it'll be your turn to explain to the board why you need this variance. If any members of the board have any questions of you, that'll be the opportunity to ask. Once you're all done, I'll open the public hearing up where any members of the public can register comments with the board. Once that's finished, I'll close public hearing and I'll bring it back to the board for deliberation. They may have more questions for you, and ultimately a motion and a decision on this matter. So with that, Ms. Schluto, I'll turn it over to you for your presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this case, PBA-03-21 is for 1919 Robina. This is a request for a variance of a minimum lot size of a residential property located in the R1D single family district. The property is located on the west side of Robina, north of 11 Mile Road. So a little while ago, the applicant and homeowner came to City Hall and requested a lot split application. He wanted to split the property into 2 separate parcels. Based on the dimensions of the property and the way that the property is angled a little bit in the back, we were able to determine that one or both of these lots, the way that he had originally proposed it, would not meet the minimum lot size requirements in the R1D district. That requirement is 4,400 square feet. So after working with the applicant for some time and manipulating the parcel lines a little bit, we were able to satisfy that parcel 1 would continue to meet the parcel 2, I apologize, would meet the minimum lot size requirements for the R1D district. And parcel 1 would have to require a variance of 22.55 square feet in order to meet that minimum lot size. In addition to that, we also looked at the property and the existing home that's located on the property and the accessory structure. And we were able to manipulate and change and make sure that we weren't creating any other nonconformities with this request. So the lot coverage is in compliance, the setbacks are in compliance, additionally with the accessory structure on the property. So typical with dimensional variances, we have the 5 standards review, and I'll read those aloud again. Number 1, the need for the variance is due to unique circumstances or physical conditions of the property. Number 2, the need for the variance is not the result of actions of the property owner or previous property owners. Number 3, strict compliance with the ordinance will unreasonably prevent the property owner from using the property for a permitted use or will render conformity with those regulations unnecessarily burdensome. Number 4, the requested variance is the minimum variance necessary to do substantial justice to the applicant as well as other property owners. And number 5, the requested variance will not adversely impact surrounding properties. Now, I just want to make one final clarification here is that this request is specific only to the lot being split. I have discussed this with the property owner, and it is his intention to sell that split parcel to a future developer who would want to build there. But that applicant or that homeowner developer would be required to meet all the other setback, lot coverage, height requirements of the zoning ordinance as it is. So he is not asking for any additional variances for that home construction. That would be on the responsibility of the future developer or general contractor.
Thank you.
With that,
Very
I'd be happy to
complete.
answer any questions.
Yes. Any questions for staff? Okay, great. Well, Mr. Ular, yes.
I did have a question in that, I thought I read that it said that the, previously it was 2 parcels and then it was, joined into one. My question is, when did the 4,400 square foot requirement come in? So when it was 2 parcels previously, I'm assuming then there was not the minimum lot size must have been smaller.
Well, a lot of those properties that are on that area, the way that if you look at the aerial, the way that the properties are kind of cut, they're a little bit angled there. So I couldn't tell you when that minimum lot size requirement was adopted. I don't know that off the top of my head. I can look into that, but you know, there are a lot of properties that are on there that that don't meet that requirement, and a lot of them certainly in the R1D district, just the way that they were platted, don't meet that requirement.
Okay.
They can still be developed if they had been split prior to the adoption of the existing ordinance, which was 1981. Then they can be developed. We've had that situation come about before. But in this case, because the parcel now wants to be split, it has to meet the minimum lot size requirements.
I mean, it's
But
just,
if it had maintained as 2 separate parcels, then he could build on it without needing a variance.
it's so close. I was wondering whether it's possible when it was 2 previously, it somehow might have been surveyed or read as being at 4,400 before. Is that possible, or there's just no way of knowing?
It's possible. I don't have any of the historical survey documents, and neither does the homeowner.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other members of the board? Great. Okay, Mr. Fayek, your turn to let us know why you need this variance.
Yeah, so I requested this variance for parcel 1 to because it was a little bit smaller than the required lot size. I was requesting it in hopes to sell the parcel 1. As it is now, I have a double lot and I am a single man. I don't really have any use for it. I mean, it's on a stop sign, like where Robina and Columbia kind of where Columbia butts up to Robina. So it's just an empty lot. I figured that I would let somebody else be a lucky homeowner in the city of Berkeley. So.
Okay, anything else, or are you all set?
I'm all set.
All right, thank you very much.
I think Erin did a very good job of summing everything up, everything that we talked about and worked on for the last month. So
great. We certainly appreciate everything she does. She
was a great help.
Definitely well informs us.
Yeah, great.
Good. All righty. Do any members of the board have any questions for the applicant? Okay, seeing none, I'll open up the public hearing. Move on to public hearing. The public will have the opportunity to speak on this matter. To speak during public comment, participants in the webcast can utilize the raise hand function by selecting Manage Participants on the bottom of your dashboard, and then select the More button in the bottom right-hand corner. A moderator will call your name aloud and unmute you so that you can speak. For those For those that have called in, you can be placed in the queue for public comment by selecting *9. Our moderator will announce the last 4 digits of your phone number for recognition and unmute you so that you can speak. Participants will have 3 minutes to speak as they would if we were meeting in person. Once your 3 minutes are up, you will be muted by our moderators. Additionally, comments can be submitted prior to or at this time to zoning@berkeleymish.net, where residents and community members can submit public comments as well. Your email must be able to be read in less than 3 minutes. Given the circumstances with the virtual space, we may not be able to read through all of the email comments, but know that we will have them stored and acknowledged on the public record. To participate in public comment, you can dial by phone at 1-312-626-6799 and enter meeting ID number 997-0652-8278. And at this time, we'll review public comments. Ms. Schluto, have we received any emails prior to the meeting?
I have not received any emails, correspondence, letters, or phone calls, no.
Thank you. Mr. Baumgart, do we have any members of the public waiting in queue to speak with us tonight?
You sure do, Mr. Chair. Screen name Robert Williams would like to address the ZBA.
Great. Mr. Williams?
Yes, good evening.
Yes, good evening. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. You're welcome. I live at 1920 Rabina, directly across the street from the parcel in question with my wife. We've been here for 47 years and we have no objection to the approval of that request.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Mr. Baumgart, do we have any other members of the public waiting?
No, Mr. Chair, there are no other individuals indicating as such.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, I'll close the public hearing and I'll bring it back to the board for any discussion and a potential motion.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Allen.
Yes, looking the drawings over and looking at the physical lot, I have to tell you that I felt pretty good about the fact that you had 2 40-foot lots at the front of the lot. It gets slightly smaller as it goes back, but you can very, very handily, within the required setbacks, put a 24-foot wide house in there. And that seems to be the gold standard for most of the builders, 24-foot width minimum. So I personally don't have any problems here. I think it meets our 5 standards, and it's not a ridiculous request by any stretch of the imagination. 22 square feet is pretty reasonable.
Great, thank you. Any other members of the board with any comments? Yeah, I believe there is a practical difficulty here with the angled rear lot line. And from a neighborhood standpoint, I just can't fathom what negative impact it would have on the public. I mean, if you're standing on a Robina, I mean, you know, these lots are about 110 feet deep. That's basically about a fifth of a foot width if you just were to shave some off along that east-west common property line. So I can't fathom how such a small variance could negatively impact the neighborhood, and I believe it meets all the standards as well. Mr. Ular.
I also can't fathom how it would cause a problem, but I don't think it meets standard number 3, if we're being honest. I mean, he can live on that lot as is.
Mr. Chair,
maybe.
Paul, are you frozen?
I think Paul's frozen.
Okay. Ms. McAlpine, do you want to temporarily take over duties till he returns?
Sure, Mr. Gazond?
Yeah, I also don't see any problem with the with the proposal. I am a little curious, once a house is built on this, if that house doesn't fit the setback or the other requirements, then they're going to have to come back here before us again, correct?
Right, yes. And the point of this is that at this point, it's just for the minimum lot size. That would be something that we would work with the future contractor, future developer, that they've already received this variance for the minimum lot size, and they need to make sure that they've looked at that property carefully to make sure that the house can fit. That would be their responsibility before they purchase the property.
Ms. Ward, and Ms. Ward, before you go, I just want to apologize. I think my internet gave out for about a minute there, so I was not present.
And
I'm sure you all know.
I lost you guys too. And I didn't get a chance to hear what Mr. Ular had to say with regard to not meeting one of the standards. If he could repeat it, I'd very much appreciate it.
I would too. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, he can live on that lot as is. You know, there's really, I don't think it meets number 3 if we're being brutally honest. Splitting your lot into 2 is kind of like a generator. It's a luxury. I mean, you don't have to do it. Anybody could live there. So if we're being honest about the criteria, I don't think it meets the 3rd one. I agree it wouldn't look out of place, and I don't really have a huge problem with it. It's just one of those issues that it's why it stinks being on the ZBA sometimes if you're supposed to follow those 5 criteria, because I don't think there's any way you can really argue that he couldn't just live there as is, as could anybody else who bought the property.
I think that's a good point. Ms. Ward.
I tend to agree with Mr. Ular. I don't think the request for the variance meets number 3, which is strict compliance with the ordinance will unnecessarily prevent the property owner from using the property for a permitted purpose, or will render conformity with those regulations unnecessarily burdensome. I just judging from driving up and down the street, I did not see that the other properties were 4,400 feet or 40 feet across. And to me, it will make that particular property stand out like a sore thumb. That we have many lots in Berkeley that are 40 feet wide. And I thought that with the new master plan, that our intent was to try and get away from the 40-foot lots and go to larger size lots. I may be mistaken on that, but that was my understanding and my read of the master plan. So I have to agree with Mr. Ular that I don't think this variance request meets all of the criteria, the 5 criteria that we use to judge requests.
Thank you. Ms. McAlpine.
I have to agree, and I welcome any other comments from my fellow commissioners to convince me that if we do not approve this request, that they will not be able, the property owner will be prevented from using this piece of property for its permitted use, given it's currently a house, and it will be a house tomorrow, with or without a lot split.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Allen.
part of the permitted uses is the sale of your home. Something we need to keep in mind. And being, I wouldn't say I'm a property rights person, but a person, as long as it's done legally, has the right to subdivide, to sell off whatever subdivisions are in there, as long as they meet requirements. He's come here to us to ask for a 22 square foot variance, which on a lot that size isn't a great deal. And I'll take the stand that he does have the right to split and sell if he wants to. Happens all the time in Berkeley.
Thank you. Mr. Krug.
I would have to agree 100% with Steve. My thoughts are exactly the same.
Thank you. Do any of the members have any comments that they'd like to share with the board? Mr. Ular.
I mean, you can sell a big lot. It's not interfering with his right to sell. It'd be very easy to sell a large lot, particularly with builders who like to build a new home and one of those, instead of sticking one of those big houses on a postage stamp sized lot, you could stick one of those big houses on a big lot, and that would really look good. So I don't think it interferes with his right to sell at all.
Yeah, I would concur. I mean, we do see a number of cases, and Ms. McAlpine, I see your hands up as well. We do, over the last few months, we've had a number of cases where we've just recognized that people are trying to max out the use of their property, and sometimes there's not necessarily room under the ordinance standards to do everything they want. In this instance, even though the property might, if we deny it, and I'm actually leaning towards agreeing that it doesn't meet the standard that we're talking about. But yeah, somebody could still have a nice home and perhaps not have the density concerns that we see and hear about at this board, where people want to fit everything on their property. So I'm not convinced now, after hearing everyone else's comments, that it meets the that'll unreasonably prevent the property owner from using the property for a permitted purpose or render conformity with those regulations unnecessarily burdensome. So that's just my thought. Ms. McAlpine.
I would agree, and by us not allowing this lot split doesn't, once again, according, I agree with Mr. Euler. He can still sell his property. He could sell his property as it is today, or he can live in his house as it is today, and we are not creating a burden on him.
Ms. Ward.
Mr. Chair, I see that Mr. Williams is still with us. I would be curious to ask him what the width of his property is. I believe he has the brick house that is across the street.
I do, yes. I think my property is maybe 80 feet wide, but it also was 2 lots. It's a double lot. They were all in this area about 40 feet wide. And it just seems to me that this request is 0.5% under what the code is currently calling for. And at the time that they originally subdivided here, the intent was to have 2 lots there. And in fact, there were 2 lots. And as a homeowner and someone who's been in Berkeley for a long time, I kind of feel like it sounds like it might be, actually, it's almost like putting a burden back on the current homeowner, that he can't use that property the way it was originally intended, which was for 2 houses. And really the houses that would be built there, or I'm not sure that the board understood that there's already a house on one of those 2 parcels that he wants to use. It's not that he's going to have an 80-foot lot to sell. He's still only going to have 40 feet. But it just seems kind of unfair to take back the right to use that property for a house again. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ward.
My only comment is that I'm concerned about the character of the neighborhood. And that is a very, even though it's a very narrow parcel, And there are a number of homes, I think, that may have been built on 40-foot lots. To me, driving down the road, I noticed that the houses looked like there were much green space around them. And like Mr. Euler's concern is that somebody's going to come in, they are going to want to put one of those gigantic houses on a postage stamp size parcel of property. And they're going to overbuild it. And yes, I know Ms. Schluto will keep the builder in line, but still in all, I think it would be not within the character of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Schluto and then Mr. Ular.
I just wanted to point out that while there are a lot of double lots along that street, directly across the street, there are several properties that are 43 foot wide. So there are a couple of houses that, while they're not at the minimum, they, you know, the 3 feet is hardly discernible from just driving down. So it wouldn't be a 2 40-foot lots in a mixture of nothing but 80-foot lots. And I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. And then Mr. Ular, you were next.
I mean, I'm sympathetic to what Mr. Williams just said. And the reason I asked the question about the history of it is it seems like, it seems like there would be some kind of paperwork, or if there'd be a survey showing when it was put together, if these were at some point deemed two compliant lots. I don't know. I guess I'm just thinking out loud, but if there was some way that you know, this could be something that was running with the land all along, but yeah, I'll just be quiet. I don't think it meets the third criteria as is.
Ms. McAlpine.
Unfortunately, our job is to ensure with 100% certainty that the 5 standards have been met. And given standard number 3 has not been met, I find it very difficult for us to deviate from our rules of procedure and approve this. But if there is any indication or any way that we could further explore Mr. Euler's thought process that maybe this was originally deemed for that and they were in compliance at some point, maybe it might be best for the homeowner to table this motion as well so that we don't deny this request and then they don't have a recourse to come back to us should they find something different.
Mr. Ular.
Did I read right that, so from the street, is it 1.5 feet? That the 22 square feet from the street would be a slice or an angle that was it 1.5 inches or 1.5 feet, or what was the?
Oh, well, all I did, that was just my.
I thought I saw it in the report too.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, if you thought you saw it in the report, I'll defer to Ms. Schluto on that.
I don't know. Could you explain a little bit more what you're asking?
What's the amount of square feet? It's under the 4,400. It would be 22 feet, 22 square feet under.
Yeah, 22.55 square feet. Yes.
So like a slice from the curb. What is that? 22.
Oh, yeah, that was my example. So what I did is I took the depth of the lot, which was about 110, and divided, put the two numbers, did some division, but essentially it came out to be 0.2 foot wide strip. 10 by 0.2 feet is about that many square.
So 0.2 foot would be what, like 3 inches, 4 inches?
About 3 inches.
See, that's just like, it seems like where the guy sets up the survey equipment, or well, I don't know. I mean,
Mr. Chair, I did go back into our property file and try to find when this originally was done, and we don't have the survey or the lot split, or I'm sorry, the lot combination paperwork from 2000. We don't have it.
There's no other backup place that could be, or where they could look for it, or
not that I'm aware of. No.
Like do we know what company the city would have used back then, or would we have done it ourselves, or?
Well, the lot combination would have come from an applicant. So yeah, I don't have any of that information. I don't have the application on file. We looked for it in the property file and we don't have it.
Would the county have that?
That's possible.
Okay, I was just curious.
Ms. Ward,
I lost you guys again.
same here. Do you have Huawei?
And I did not hear the comments made by Mr. Ular. And so I was wondering if he would be willing to repeat them again. I apologize, Miles.
I was more or less just babbling.
Oh,
I mean, I think it turns out that from the street, it'd be about 1.5 inches slice going back and my thought was, that's so small, it could be just the way what if the guy's leaning to his left a little bit? I was wondering if there's any way there could be backup paperwork to show that originally there might have been a reading that this was, that there was 2 compliant lots.
Ms. McAlpine.
That was more or less
Oh,
it.
sorry, Mr. Ular. I thought you were done. You are done, yes.
I should have
I
been done.
think what Miles is referring to is the second paragraph in the standards for review under A, the need for the variance is due to the unique circumstances or physical conditions of the property. And it talks about the intersection of the rear and side lot lines of the existing parcel is not a 90-degree angle, but is angled slightly. Well, it is not enough to notice while walking the property. The angle does reduce the overall lot area so that the property split cannot be done wherein both parcels would conform to the zoning ordinance.
and if I may.
Yes.
My understanding, looking at the survey, I think the lot as it goes back has a tendency to narrow. That was my perception from looking at what was provided to us in our package. And so what's happening is, okay, maybe the front part of the lot is 40 feet, but as the lot goes back, it gets narrower and narrower by a total of 22.5 feet. Is that correct, Ms. Schluto?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like if you compare the proposed split, both parcels look to be 40 feet wide at the street, but in the back, parcel 1 narrows down to 39.52. Parcel 2 actually gets wider. It's like the deviation for both is about a half foot from
And we
40.
worked carefully to make sure that there wasn't any additional nonconformities created by this lot split. So to make sure that the existing house and the existing garage meet the setbacks that are required.
Sure, right. So you wouldn't create any additional. Okay, got it. Yeah. And Mr. Krug, you had your hand up, but then I saw you nodding in agreement.
Aaron just answered the question I was thinking in my mind.
Okay. Yeah, my thought on this, I'm torn. I mean, it's so little. On one hand, the zoning boards over the years can get, well, I'm just making this up. Well, I'm only asking for 22 square feet. Well, someone else comes in, they ask for 100. Another guy comes in, asks for more. We have to be cognizant that we're not being, just picking, as a board, we think this amount in this situation is appropriate. So we focus back on our standards. But boy, oh boy, I just wish there was something out there historical. Can the survey be started from a different location to be accurate, to give some a different reading? I just wish there was a different solution. And I do see 2 people with their hands up. One member is Mr. Williams, another one is Councilmember Hennon. As with before, normally when public hearing is closed, we don't welcome, but if anyone else would like to hear them, McAlpine's nodding. She's saying yes. Okay, Mr. Williams, I believe you had your hand up first.
Yeah, I'll make this quick. You asked if there was any historical record of it, you know, being prepared or whatever to be split. Actually, it hasn't been mentioned, but there is a second driveway on that property. There's the driveway that's attached to the house right now, and then there's a driveway that's about 25 or 30 feet away from it on the most westerly property line. And since I've been here, the people who live in the house at 1919 have always used that second driveway. It was, as I understood it, it was put in originally in preparation for building a house there. And when the city repaved the roads here many years ago, they went ahead and put in a brand new curb cut and paved the apron there. So I think that it was, for a long time, it was planned to have a house there. Thank you.
Thank you. And it does show on the survey, there's a curb cut there to the north side of parcel 1. Councilmember Hennon, you had a comment?
Yes, I can't speak to the history of this property, how it was originally platted, what the intent was. I can speak to the history of surveys in general. And in general, they have become more accurate these days, incredibly accurate now that you have GPS and satellite. So that is just something to keep in mind when comparing surveys. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I thought that was a good comment, actually. Thank you. Well, I'll turn it back over to the board members for any further thoughts, perhaps a motion. Ms. Ward. You're muted, Ms. Ward. You're still muted.
Thank
There.
you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to deny in the matter of PBA 0321, the request for a variance of minimum lot size due to the proposed lot split located at 1919 Robina, zoned single family residential, due to the following fact that it does not meet number 3 of our criteria, which is strict compliance with the ordinance will unreasonably prevent the property owner from using the property. I don't see it.
Thank you. Do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
Mr. Jusson seconds. Any further comment or discussion? As I've said, and then, oh, Mr. Ular, go ahead. Yes.
I mean, my comment would just be if can find anything historical showing that that lot was read to be 4,400 previously, or that there was something when it was 2 lots before. If we have any kind of square footage on what the 2 lots were before, I'd be, and I'm sure what Dennis said is correct too, but I'd still be willing to go with a previous reading that Berkeley had accepted previously. I think we would have standing to do that. But as is, yeah, the third isn't met, and 22, 26, 30, what's the line? Just it gets messy.
Yeah, that's a challenge I run into too. I'm just exaggerating. If somebody wanted a 5,000 square foot area variance in a neighborhood like this, admittedly, my feelings tell me, well, that'd be a lot easier because that's way beyond threshold, but I have to focus back on the standards. So unfortunately, even though it's such a small amount, and I agree with the comments here that no one's gonna notice it except on a survey. I still think we gotta stay true with our standards, and I don't think it meets I think it was number 3, the one we're talking about. Any further comments from any board members? Okay, we have a motion and a second to deny. Ms. Schluto, I think we're ready for a vote.
Bueller,
Yes to deny.
Ward,
Yes to deny.
Allen,
No.
Gesund,
Yes.
Krug,
No.
McAlpine,
Yes to deny.
Evans.
Yes to deny. Mr. Fayek, I'm sorry, but you've been denied your request. I want to thank you for the time you put in with your application, the survey, and the time you spent with us tonight.
Thank you.
Would anyone like to take a 5-minute recess? I'm saying yes.
Please.
Great, okay. I've got 8:16, so why don't we meet back in 5 minutes, 8:21. The meeting is now in recess.
Great.
Okay, the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting is back in session. And the next item on our agenda is rules of procedure. We'll continue our discussion on our annual review of ZBA rules procedure. Ms. Schluter, I want to thank you for your keeping track of everything, all our ideas from last time. I think your memo summarizing what you've done was very helpful. One of the things that as chair, I tried to prepare for the meeting was where did we leave off? And your memo was very helpful. So I want to thank you for taking the time to put all that together and keep us organized and know where to pick up where we left off. So with that, let's see. So I'm looking at the memo to pick up where we left off. Is everybody satisfied with everything in the memo? Or is there any items in the memo that we perhaps need to tie up or clarify before we move on to next portion of potential changes? Any board members?
I think she did a fine job of capturing what we had done up to this point.
Agree. I did have one question under let's see, section, well, on the memo, page 1, item 3, the standards of review read aloud to the public. I know we're kind of going back and forth as to how somebody might read them or who's going to read them. What I saw happen at tonight's meeting, I thought was a great idea that I didn't think of.
Absolutely.
Having staff read it. And I'm seeing nods here. I guess if everyone's okay with that, maybe we could just give Ms. Schluto some direction to adjust that language accordingly, that the person who will read it is staff. Is everybody okay with that? Maybe just raise a hand if you're all okay with that. All right, great. Ms. Schluto, I see you're nodding as well. Mr. Desun, you raised your hand? I'm sorry, I didn't see. Okay, great. All right, good. All righty. Where are we at? So section 3.13 was the last item, and that was the order of business. So we've agreed to that. And this is item number 13 on page 5 of the draft rules of procedure that were included in our packet. And there's a proposed change there to have staff / board member report. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts on that? And certainly if you're okay with it, just say so too. Ms. Schluto, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to draw attention that this was an email that we had received from Councilmember Hennon about his liaison report, and he had just requested that his liaison report go after staff or board member report, just so that way we're both covering and not doubling up on certain things. So I've incorporated that for his request, but wanted to draw attention to the board.
Yeah, you've moved board member report just up ahead of his report, right? Okay, gotcha. And Mr. Allen, go ahead.
Oh, no, that sounds perfect, actually.
Great. I'm seeing other nods. Any other thoughts on that? Good. We all good on that? Just thumbs up if you're good. All right, I'm seeing everybody's good. Okay. Moving on. Section 4, officers' duties. And the comment is that it has already been mentioned. Refer to the above section. Oh, whoops, I got ahead of myself. Number 1 talks about selecting the officers. And if there is no January meeting, then the officers shall be. Ms. Schluto, is that actually a change?
It was just a change in the formatting, but it just added it as a track change for.
Oh, okay. All right. So there's really no, gotcha.
Whatever
okay.
Word wants to do. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So it's just a change in the format. Okay. So item 2, and we've already mentioned that. Yeah, I think it's appropriate as chair to not necessarily mention it twice, but refer back to where it's mentioned earlier. Any other thoughts from the board members? And Ms. Schluto, if you want to add in anything of your comments as to why you perhaps suggested that other than what's in there, you know. Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Good. Mr. Ular, you're good with that? All right, thanks. All right, and moving on to page 6, item B, delete the text for whatever reason. I have no issue with that. Any other thoughts on that? All right. Great. So I'm hearing no other thoughts, so we'll accept that one. Item C does not need to be from the building department. I think that would allow us more flexibility, Aaron, correct?
Yeah, just in case that there's a point where, you know, I as the community development director can't be there for a particular reason. So that way, whoever is there, the designee, not necessarily from the building department, but the city manager could step in if need be.
Sure. And I think that gives us more flexibility. Ms. Ward.
That's what I was thinking, is that it could be the city manager who would be the designee. In fact, I think there was one time when you weren't able to be at the meeting and Matt was responsible for handling the meeting. So thank you, Matt.
Well, I think that was before my tenure. I've never missed a meeting. I wouldn't dare to miss a meeting with that.
Oh, we like to hear that. I'm glad this is being recorded for broadcast.
Then it must have been your predecessor, but I do remember that Matt.
Yes, but that may come at a time where schedules, things conflict, and so it would allow him or someone, if he's not available, someone else could do it, certainly.
Sure, and I think that's good to have the flexibility. The last thing we would want was something interfering with a meeting, because you know, we have staff who are available to do it, but we're in violation of our, I guess that'd be the first thing on our agenda, right? Change your rules.
Right.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
All right, excellent. All right, minutes, section 5, the next proposed change. Approved minutes shall be recorded with the city clerk. All right. Any thoughts on that? To me, it's fine.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, all right, good. Looks like section 6, number 1 is just a grammatical correction.
Yes.
We're all good with that, right? Of course we are. All right. Well, it looks like we're at the end. Okay. Any additional thoughts from any members of the board, or Aaron, if you have anything to add? Otherwise, if we don't have any, Aaron, you provided us some templates for sample motions here.
Yes, I've done that for each case, and I'll continue to do that with each case in your packets, just to make things a little bit easier for everyone.
No, that's a great idea, and I've seen it done with other boards, not just you know, in other communities, and it does help us with consistency. So thank you very much. Well, at this point, I think I think everybody's in agreement as to what we've seen. Do we want?
Crash.
It'll fall again.
The two of them.
Madam Vice Chair, we have been having issues with WOW throughout the day today, so this seems to be a continuation of that.
Yes, it does. So we'll give them a minute, unless, because I think the next thing we would do is have a motion on the floor. So we'll wait and let Mr. Evans and Ms. Ward join us.
Looks like Paul and Maria have dropped off completely. Oh, there's Maria.
There's Maria. There they go.
Here comes Paul back.
Welcome back.
I'm sorry, I don't know. This is now the third time that I have lost you guys.
You have Huawei, Maria?
I do. I have WOW.
I do too, and I called them this morning. And I guess this is an excuse,
you
just an
go again.
explanation, because I
You're
don't like
gone.
leaving because I have no idea what everybody heard or what happened.
Off he goes again. And Maria.
The company is aptly named. I've seen a lot of people say wow here lately.
For the sake of the meeting, are we in agreement that we're at the point where we want to make a motion?
Sure.
Okay, I'll
Make
just
a
make sure.
motion to approve the rules of procedure and have Aaron update it to the latest approved copy.
Support.
Perfect. So I will, so Ms. Ward and Mr. Evans, there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Allen and a support by, who is the support? I'm sorry. Mr. Gazan to approve the rules and procedures as presented on March 8th, 2021 on the floor. So we'll take a roll call vote then, Ms. Schluto.
Ward,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes?
Gazund,
Yes.
Krug,
Yes.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes. Great. Okay. Thank you, Ms. McAlpine, for taking over and keeping things moving. All right. So
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chairman? How many of us have WOW? I have it. Are we the only two?
apparently so. So the good news is there's still a quorum if we're not there.
True.
All right. All right. Our next item is a staff/board member report. So Ms. Schluto, do you have anything to report?
Yeah, so I just want to draw everyone's attention to the housing and the corridor videos that were recorded earlier last month related to our master plan. So those have been loaded on the city website, as well as a couple of surveys accompanying it. So we really hope that you will take the surveys. And then certainly we invite you all to attend the virtual open house that is scheduled for March 25th at 7 p.m. where we can discuss housing corridor, commercial corridors in a little bit more depth. I'll be sending everyone out a reminder email, but the surveys will be live on the city website until March 14th. So if you haven't already done so, please make sure that you watch and give us your thoughts. Thank you.
They're froze again.
They're frozen again.
So next up would be public comments.
Madam Vice Chair,
Yes.
I did have a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In light of the pauses from the board members that have WOW, would it be possible, I know this is outside the purview of our zoning board duties, but to have the city manager or perhaps our council liaison to invite WOW to city council, maybe to speak on infrastructure reasons or reasons why WOW, why there's been so many service interruptions with WOW lately.
I have already made such a note during this meeting. So.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from my fellow commissioners? If not, then Mr. Hennon, I believe we did receive notice that you don't have a liaison report, but you are here. So if you have anything that you'd like to share with us, please do so.
No, I don't have anything. I'd also suggest looking at the report Ms. Schluto emailed the ZBA as well. Wanted to put her in front of me because normally then that will leave nothing left for me to say. She is so thorough. So, and as usual, that is the case tonight. So thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Mr. Baumgartner, are there any public comments?
No, ma'am. I see nobody indicating as such.
Okay, well then I would make a motion that at 8:39, as Mr. Ward and Mr. Evans are coming on, Mr. Gazan did ask that we have some kind of communication with WOW, and Councilman Hennanen has already requested that happen. There were no other comments from any other board members. We did not have any public comments, so I will just go ahead if it's okay, Mr. Evans, and at 8:39, adjourn our meeting.
We need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Allen,
Yes.
Gazund,
Yes.
Krug,
Yes.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Bueller,
Yes.
Ward, Evans. To say that they agree.
All right, well, thank you very much, everyone. Everybody have a good month and stay safe.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.